morning, everyone, and good afternoon to people in other time zones. I'm Steve Farrell, the Worldwide Executive Director for Humanities Team, and welcome to this Oneness and 12 Spheres of Life call. It's great to be with you. As you know, Anna Marie Peters out of South Africa and I host these monthly calls. Anna Marie, can you come in real quick just to say hi as we get started?
Yeah, hi, everyone from wonderful South Africa. Great to be here.
All right, awesome. You'll hear a lot more from Anna Marie here shortly. This month our focus is education. Our special guest is Dr. Fred Donaldson, who wrote something called Playing by the Heart, the Vision and Practice of Belonging. It is a must-read for all of those who are journeying in oneness. It goes beyond simple playing. It's about pre-learning and forms the basis of education for children, parents, educators, and all of us. We'll be introducing Dr. Fred Donaldson shortly. We're all really just super excited about today's program. We have about 21,000 registered for today's call. Some cannot listen in live, so we send out a recorded link so these people can listen in later. Thank you so much, everyone, for prioritizing time to be here for this important conversation. As with our calls each week, this call is interactive with each of you, our listeners, so we want to invite you to put your questions in the question window on Instant Teleseminar. I promise we'll get to at least a few of your questions during the hour. A little about Humanities Team as we get started. In Humanities Team we see there is only one presence, the divine, and see we are all offspring and expressions of the divine. This means God's love, light, grace, and peace are ours because there is no separation and we share the same essence. Since our founding in 2003, we've done our best to live as one with the divine, each other, and our earth home. We don't need to be perfect. It doesn't have to feel heavy. We must only do our best. We can have fun with this, as certainly we'll demonstrate on today's call. When we talk about oneness with the divine, of course, this is true for all of life, not just humanity. This has repercussions for how we see ourselves, others, and the earth that is our home. This means everyone and everything is sacred and should be treated as such. It also means we're responsible for the world around us because, in truth, it's part of our authentic self, encompassing the whole of the earth. Perhaps there's nothing more important than this, coming to see ourselves as a cell in the body of the divine, the earth, and stepping into a role where we're caring for the earth and the world that we live in. This is our focus in Humanities Team, and if you resonate with our work, we invite you to go to the humanitiesteam.org website and reach out to us about projects you'd like to become involved in. We have a brand new website, so you might check it out now for a few minutes. If you like the idea, you can, again, go to humanitiesteam.org to check us out. Before we begin our program, my co-host, Anna Marie Peters, is going to introduce herself and her role in Humanities Team briefly, and then tell you about the sphere we're focusing on this month, education. Over to you, Anna Marie.
Fabulous. Thank you, Steve. Yes, good day, everyone. Education remains one of the most pressing issues in the world and is something that I am also very passionate about. I've come to realize over the years that there are all kinds of knowing and learning, but everything changed when I came to know through the heart. I have been a full-time volunteer for Humanities Team since 2005, an amazing space where I have been learning so much about myself and about life, about oneness, universe, about creation during these years. Today is another opportunity for me to deepen my understanding and perspective around learning and education along with all of you. I am the country coordinator for Humanities Team in South Africa and active in wherever I can help on a global level. The hat that I'm wearing today, as Steve said, is that of co-leading our Oneness in 12 Spheres of Life initiative together with Steve. It is very special for me to be on this call today with you, Dr. Fred Donaldson, since Humanities Team in South Africa were the host of one of your original play workshops in South Africa back in 2012. Dr. Donaldson is much loved and respected here in my country, and you will all soon learn why. So welcome, everyone, and especially to you, Dr. Fred. And thank you, Steve. Over to you again.
Okay, thank you, Anna Marie. And if you'd like, you can go ahead and bring in the education sphere here, and then I'll just read the agenda, and I'll then introduce Dr. Fred.
Super. Thank you, Steve. Yeah, so in our overview of the sphere of education, we want to understand what learning, the gathering of knowledge and understanding, is really all about. How does it happen best? What lies at the heart of learning and education? And what are some of the best and most effective approaches to learning and education. This sphere includes all forms of education and all ages. It covers all species and cross-species, and the formal and informal. It takes into consideration the brain while learning, the psychology of learning, learning to learn, and awareness of cultural characteristics and assumptions. In our overview of this sphere, we want to consider how ideas that we have come to appreciate and honor through our inquiry and understanding of oneness, like, for example, the aspects of beingness, consciousness, creation and co-creation, openness, authenticity, freedom, mystery, and the underlying sacred, interrelated, interconnected, and interdependent reality of life. Some of the main principles that we think the oneness education approach can draw from include holistic education, developmental models of growth and learning, the human potential movement, multiple intelligences, creative student-driven learning, and so on. Examples of these approaches that we are aware of are, for example, the Montessori education that I know Dr. Fred is very much familiar with, Steiner schools, unschooling, homeschooling, transformative education, and Reggio Emilia schools. And we know that there are also many others. But education from this perspective is about creating positive growth on personal and a collective level. It is about learning programs that promote the ability to hold multiple perspectives and that develop more efficient and fruitful problem solving. It nurtures community building and evokes artistic, creative, intellectual, and spiritual faculties that interweave mastery and mystery. Here, knowledge about the world is achieved through our physical and spiritual senses. It is infused with self-knowledge and love that is gained through continuous practice of connecting to our inner wisdom. In this space, we want to learn how students can become the masters of their lives, who are able to spontaneously navigate circumstances and situations, who have a natural ability to fulfill their own interest without jeopardizing the interest of others, with their behavior being nourishing to themselves and those around them. We want to see that teachers embody and enact the principles laid out by these approaches and hold a personal commitment to transformation and ongoing learning and inquiry. Many things can be said about learning and education from a universal and oneness perspective, and for this reason, we look forward to this discussion today. Thank you, Steve.
Thank you, Anna Marie. Always so wonderful the way you just frame these calls, in this case, education. Just beautiful, so much wisdom. Thank you. Okay, let me take you through our agenda briefly, and then I'll introduce our special guest. Next, I will introduce our special guest, Dr. Fred Donaldson. Then I'll briefly interview Dr. Fred. After that, we're going to open our interactive panel discussion with Dr. Fred and Anna Marie. And at this point, I'll be bringing in your questions from you, our listeners, and again, invite you to put your questions in the question window. We already have some coming in, and thank you to those of you who are sending us your questions. Before closing, I'll share about coming programs that you don't want to miss, and then we'll close the program. So let's go ahead and get started, and once again, please get comfortable here as we get started. I'm now going to introduce our special guest. Dr. O. Fred Donaldson is a play specialist, internationally recognized for his ongoing research and use of play with children and animals for over 30 years. He has coined the term original play to describe his work. He has written the book Playing by the Heart, The Vision and Practice of Belonging, as well as over 40 articles describing his play with children and animals around the world. Fred Donaldson is an Aikidooist and a consultant to families, educational, service, social service, health, and environmental organizations, as well as corporations and athletic groups. His playmates include special needs children, gang members, refugees, and street kids, prison inmates, cancer patients, dolphins, whales, lions, grizzly bears, wolves, baboons, and butterflies. He travels extensively, but spends much of his year in Europe and the United States. Welcome to this Oneness and 12 Spheres of Life program, Dr. Fred. It's great to have you with us.
Thank you. I'm really happy that it worked out to be here.
All right. Well, let's go ahead and get started, gosh, because there's so much that we're wanting to ask you here. Let me start with this question. It's a little long, so hang in there with me. But
okay.
it kind of frames your work as we understand it. So when it comes to education, the world has become one in which teachers are the ultimate authority, where testing proves competency, and where the definition of learning is quite narrow. We see that it's very much about content-based learning, memorization as a priority, with creativity largely ignored, and students trained for old jobs. You come from the world of education. In your Pulitzer Prize-nominated book, Playing by the Heart, we read about your university professor, Dr. Bill Bunge, who encouraged his students to make their education fun, and how this was an inspiration for you. You finished your academic degree, but you left university teaching in the mid-1970s because, as you put it in your book, you wanted to be with people who are learning. Can you share about this, please, and how it came to be that playing has become your whole life professional focus?
I went to the university because I thought that was the proper place to pursue learning, and to a certain extent, certainly that happens. But what I began to notice in my years in universities, that it was, for me, too much politics. Too much of learning really didn't happen. And I had to ask, well, where is it that I should go if that's what I'm really interested in? And then the answer was obvious. I needed to go to preschool. And there, learning doesn't happen because someone teaches you. Learning happens because that's the way you live. And that's what I wanted to be part of. I wanted to be part of learning as living, not as sitting in a chair. Well, I didn't have any experience, though, at that level. Fortunately, a school offered me a job as a teacher's aide, but it only lasted a week because I didn't take direction very well, and that was the whole job. So the director called me in and said, "Fred, we like you, but we don't know what to do with you. What can you do?" And I said, "I don't know. I have no experience. I've never been with kids." And he didn't know what to do, and I didn't know what to do. So all of a sudden, just looking at him, I said, "I'll be a special teacher in play." And without even thinking, he said, "Okay, do that." Then we looked at each other and thought, well, what does that mean? Neither of us knew. I certainly had no idea what I was supposed to do. Well, Monday came, and I went to school, and there I was. I needed to do something. And the only thing that occurred to me was just sit on the floor. Just sit there. And I thought, oh, man, I'm getting paid for sitting on the floor. Wow. Fortunately, somebody knew what to do. The little kids started to crawl on me and jump on me and play with me. And I thought, oh, that's my job. I'm a very big teddy bear. And that's what I've been for 40 years, a teddy bear. And
well, that's something we all aspire to. Yes.
And I was astounded. Being trained as a social scientist, a lot of my training had to do with the search for pattern. So when the kids started to play with me day in, day out, and I was playing 5 to 6 hours every day, I began to notice that there was pattern in their play. I didn't expect that. But often we, as scientists, we find pattern where we don't expect it. And there were 3 patterns that showed up right away. One was that children could invite you to play by using their eyes. 2 was that there was stages and pattern to their touch. Their touch wasn't random in play. And both of those were a surprise to me. I wasn't expecting that. The 3rd pattern was the one that astounded me. There was no contest in their play. That means there was no blame, there was no revenge. And I thought, well, this is a really weird group of kids. Nobody does that. I mean, life is a contest. My whole education and play all of education in the university was all contest behavior. And I thought, well, this can't be. I'm missing something here. So I kept playing with kids at this school, other kids, and it was the same thing. Whenever I got down and played, there was no contest. I thought, wow, how did they do that? And I thought, I need to test this. So I was living in Southern California, so I went to Tijuana and found street kids hanging out, and just would get down on all fours and crawl to these kids and not say a word and start playing. And these kids, excuse me, were not young. We're talking about kids from 8 to 18, 20 years old. And they all played with me, no aggression. And I thought, wow, how do they do that? How do they know that? I couldn't answer the questions. I came back to the States and played with every kid I could find. Children with autism, schizophrenia, gang members, cerebral palsy. They all played the same. A child with autism plays exactly the way a normal child plays. I thought, oh, that's not supposed to be true. What's happening here? I don't get it. And I began to think that, well, if all these kids understand the same thing, what if what they understand is bigger than kids? And I thought, well, if that's true, I need to play with animals and find out, do animals know the same thing? But I didn't know anything about animals. I wasn't, animals were not a special thing in my life. So visiting a friend in Seattle, Washington, she was going to visit a wolf reserve and asked me to come. I said, yeah, I'd love it. While I was there, I asked if I could go in and play with them. The biologist said, no, of course not. These aren't pets, Fred. Nobody does that. Well, we arranged for me to do it, and I spent 10 years playing with wolves. And they played just like the kids. Oh, wow. The pattern's getting bigger. The next were dolphins, wild dolphins in Australia, where I lived on the beach for 5 weeks in the outback playing with wild dolphins. And the patterns were exactly the same as the wolves and the kids. I came back to the States, lived in Montana, and would go out into the mountains searching for playmates, but not people. I'd play with deer, elk, moose, bison, black bear, grizzly bear. And they all played the same. Same stages of touch, same use of eyes, same no contest behavior. That's when it occurred to me. Oh, what the kids are teaching me is not cultural play. It's not play that adults teach kids to pursue the culture. It's what I called original play because it's a gift from creation. So imagine that God, creation, life, gave us a gift in which we can use touch that's uniform and universal throughout all life. And that touch communicates love, trust, and a sense of belonging. And all the categories of life, and I mean all of them, not just the human ones, but the species ones, all disappear. So what happens is that when one sees me play with a lion, from the outside, yeah, it looks like Fred and a lion are playing. But that's not the reality on the inside. On the inside, what's playing is two faces of God. We call one lion, we call the other Fred, but those are just names. So the kids became mentors of an actual physical art that takes ideas like peace and makes them practical everyday realities. And that was a shock to me. How could children understand life in such a way that they were able to mentor me and answer questions that I never thought of asking because I thought everybody already knew the answers. And these were questions like, is conflict necessary? Before kids, I assumed it was. Now I know it's not. Is peace possible? I assumed it wasn't. Now I know it is. So you get a sense that the kids took me and not only yanked my clothes and pulled me to the ground, but they took my imagination and they took my heart and turned everything inside out and changed my entire life.
Wow. Oh, boy. Let's just breathe into these things you shared, Dr. Fred. Wow. Two faces of God playing, and that its original play is love, trust, and a sense of belonging. And as you were speaking, I just, so many people talk about creating heaven on earth, and this was the image that came to me of, wow, this is heaven on earth. This is the invitation and the opportunity, isn't it?
Yeah, and I was so astounded by it that I looked for support, and I couldn't find any. I was scared by it. I cried a lot because the very few kids talked to me. One day, a 5-year-old boy, we were laying on the grass, and he said to me, Fred, play is when we don't know that we're different from each other. And I looked at him and said, David, that's the whole thing. If you understand that one sentence by a 5-year-old, you understand original play.
Yeah, the two faces of God. Yeah, that is stunning. Let me bring in Anna Marie here, Anna Marie, to share, and also if you want to, we've got some more questions here for Dr. Fred, but I'd love to just hear your heart.
Oh my, this is so beautiful. When you speak like this, Fred, I'm just reminded, think about back about the beautiful time when you were here, and you are such a beautiful teddy bear. We can hear it, and I certainly experienced it. It's so beautiful. But Fred, in Africa and in South Africa, is known for the ancient view of being that we refer to as Ubuntu. I am because we are. You may have come across the word when you were here, and you may have come to experience some of it over here. But according to Ubuntu, and many people know the saying, says it takes a whole village to raise a child.
Right.
Now, this slogan speaks about the idea that the responsibility for raising a child is shared with a larger family, sometimes called the extended family. And according to this African spiritual perspective, the family or the community or the village, or it's all the same thing, includes everyone and everything, animate and inanimate, and also the natural environment. And as Western people from Western society, when we talk about a village or about a person, we never think about these things. But a village or a community includes everything, also what we see and what we don't see. Now, according to this approach, children do not only learn from adults, but adults also realize the sacred and respect the sacred teaching of children. You just shared this, how you learn from children, and that you're able to pass this on to the world today. We all learn from one another. And, when we look at nature, we see that there are hierarchies there. And again, when we look at Western societies, we treat hierarchies differently to what the indigenous people used to treat it. Every stage of the hierarchy is seen as sacred and essential and responsible for the whole. So we do not see much of this, this idea taken up into general schooling system today. And that is why I love, for example, how this is addressed in the Montessori schools, Fred, where children of different age groups, for example, are grouped together for a number of years, and where the learning environment is more of a natural enabling space in which children learn by freely choosing from different activities and according to their interests and their own abilities and so on. Mm-hmm. And I have seen, when you step into the space, it's like the kind of space that we find at many Montessori schools, for example, is that you step into a village. You step into a school village or a village where everyone is the teacher. We're all leaders and we all followers. It's a more playful approach, perhaps, to learning. So I'm not sure what your experience is around all of this, but certainly in South Africa there's a definite increase in the prevalence of this kind of schooling, thank heavens, definitely as preschooling and earlier schooling, which is such an important foundational stage for life. It's what I want to share at this point in time.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
I've been thinking about that phrase, it takes a whole village to raise a child, for the past few days. And what occurs to me from my experience with the kids who teach me is that I'm going to turn that phrase around and say it takes a whole child to raise a village. And what I mean by that is that if we really want change, if that's what we're talking about, if we're talking about a new kind of human being, adults can't do it. We haven't faced up to that. We're still living the same values, the same contest behavior that our parents were living. What the kids taught me and what they continue to teach me is, Fred, there's an entirely different way, not just of thinking, but of acting. Yeah. And that way has nothing to do with what you, Fred, know as the world you live in, the world of hierarchy, of contest behavior, of adults teaching kids. That's a different world. That's a different story of life. There is another story of life. And in that story, adults take a different role. Adults, in whether it's Montessori school, I have been in incredible school systems all over the world. One of the best one was in Los Angeles, and named Mobach. And adults still take the role of the person who teaches. We don't sit down and say, okay, today the 4-year-olds are going to teach. I'm not going to teach a thing. Yeah. What do 4-year-olds teach? What can they teach us about trust, touch, and let them do it? Yeah. That's what gave me the opportunity to go into a school and say to yourself, I know nothing. The kids are going to teach me everything there is to know about this activity. And I'm going to be a zero. I'm going to be blank. And I'm going to trust that they had something of value. Well, what happened to me was that not only they have something of value, they had something that was so valuable that it reformed how I live my life. And a whole child is a child who can approach the world, whether it's in a school or a family at home, on the street, in the community, in such a way that the child feels loved and safe. We need every child on earth to feel that there's adults that are irrationally crazy about that kid. And that's such I went to Lebanon. I work with refugee camps in Lebanon. And last year I went again, and I remember going thinking, okay, my job is to have every child there feel that Fred's rationally crazy about them.
Oh, wow.
What happened is they turned it around on me. When I left, I felt like they were rationally crazy about me. Oh, what a wonderful experience.
Absolutely. What a space to be in.
Yeah. What, Dr. Fred, what, as you then speak to adults and education systems, what do you recommend? Obviously, what you're describing here is something radical and revolutionary. It's very in line with how humanity's team sees the world, where we see that we're all connected. You know, we're all a divine expression. Right. We're faces of God. What you're talking about is something quite radical in educational circles. So, what do you, when you're speaking to adults, what do you recommend to them?
Well, as radical as it is, I'm also very clear that it's got to be practical. I mean, if it's not practical today in the school down the street, then it's not a big help. In many of the schools I worked in California, one of the things that I would say to staff, the most important thing in the morning is to make sure that every child feels safe and loved. If a child doesn't feel safe and loved, they don't have the energy to focus on learning. All their energy is used in self-defense. So much of learning time is a waste of time because the teacher's talking about learning, reading, writing, and the child is just sitting there trying to defend themselves about the fear they experience. So my job in those school systems was to be there and help children feel safe and loved, and then they could go into school. And I remember one day carrying a child out to meet his mom, and I mean carrying him. And I gave him to his mother, and his mother said to me, "Who holds me anymore?" Oh, that was like a slap in the face. So I did. And what dawned on me, and it was so clear, and why it took me so long to figure this out, I don't know, was that her son needed loving because she needed loving. So from that point on, every morning and every afternoon, I'm out in front of the school, not only holding hands of kids, hugging kids, but doing the same to parents. There's the community. That's the
community. Oh, yes.
Yeah. Boy, I get that. Just the absence of love when you get inside the family, and as you mentioned, that what can children do anyway if we're not at least coming from safety and love, which often are missing. Let me bring in a comment here that is really beautiful. This is from Diane. She says, "Oh my God, Fred, you're incredible. Thank you. I so appreciate you expressing what has been locked in my heart. I'm crying as I listen to you. I want to be in your school. My deepest heart gratitude to you. Thank you. Many blessings to you. And thank you to both of you for having Fred as a guest." I suspect Diane speaks for all of our callers here, Dr. Fred.
Thank you.
Yeah. Beautiful.
I'll get to other questions here in a minute, but Anna Marie, please, yes, come in here.
Yeah, I'd like to ask Fred, and it was something that, when we had the workshop here, Fred, is the whole question about playmate. You write about this in your book as well.
Right.
What does it mean to be a playmate?
It effectively it means that I'm going to change the context within which I live my life. So I'm going to switch from a fear-based context to a love-based context. And it means, in that sense, can be very practical, real-life things. Not everybody's going to run around playing with grizzly bears and gang members and all that stuff. But we do interact in a world every day that's highly competitive, highly full of revenge and blame. So when those things happen to me, I can let them go. I don't need to interact with another person based on fear. And that means that I touch the world differently. I'm not afraid of touching based on categories. For example, when I'm in the Middle East, I don't follow cultural patterns. When I'm in the Far East, I don't follow cultural patterns. When I work in hospitals, I don't follow health patterns. Because the touch that's important is not touching the category autism or touching the category Christian or Muslim. It's being able to touch through that. And it's not done by thinking. It's done the same way I often have as a little test for myself. If I get into a situation where I think, well, this is tough on me, then I think, what would a kitten do? Well, a kitten's not going to sit there and think. It's just going to go. And I would say, what would Mother Teresa do? She's not going to let any category get in the way of her. And then I think, okay, well, if Mother Teresa can do it, Fred can do it. Okay.
Yeah.
Then I just do it.
And then maybe, Fred, what may be wonderful for people who listen is to maybe explain a little bit about what happens in this process. And the one thing that I remember as well was this awesome space of invitation. So it's a space where there is an invitation. Maybe you can share a little bit about this.
Yeah, and some of these invitations are available everywhere all the time. For example, imagine if you have a group of women surrounding a baby. The baby's on a bed and the group of women are standing. Imagine what they do with their heads. They're going to tilt their heads. Now imagine the same situation without the women there. You bring in the men. What are they going to do? They're not going to tilt their heads. Why is the head tilt so important? It softens us. It doesn't make us weak. It softens us. So when you're in a conversation, and this can be two men, a business conversation, if you tilt your head, I don't mean turn sideways, it just tilted slightly, you soften yourself, which makes the other person less afraid. When people are less afraid, they share more easily. Very simple.
We realize that life as a whole is an invitation to play, but we don't see it, and that is certainly what I came to experience in this process. Is that there's just this wonderful thing where you as a facilitator, it's the way you look, and it's without words, where you're looking at people and people know that life is here for me to play and to participate in, and that and that it is safe to play.
Yeah, I just love this, Dr. Fred. This is really about unconditional love. It is God's, it's God's presence we're talking about, which is our presence. But we've, as you point out, lost touch with that, and now we kind of have to find our way back. It's a reintegration process, which is, of course, our Focus in Humanities team. Let me bring in a question this is from Angelica, because I think probably there are quite a number of people on the phone that might connect with some of her message. She says, hi, thank you. My heart is experiencing such sadness. It's been there for a long time. Being on this planet has been such a challenge. I've done my best with my mistakes. Of course, I never give up, yet have not been able to create my dreams. I thought having children was one of my dreams, and that was one of the most painful, challenging responsibilities I had. I did not give up, gave it my all, and have no connection with them. I do not know where they are, and no matter how much I say I forgive myself, them, and do clearings, my heart aches. I feel I totally failed. I apologize. This is not upbeat and joyous. I do not know what joy feels like. How do I truly forgive myself and trust that the divine is truly here for me, and not having my other dreams is not a punishment for having failed?
If I were with her and we were talking one-on-one, and this could be the same, I would suggest that she find in her life an opportunity to spend time with babies or special needs children, and don't talk. And I would ask her to go to be with some special needs kids, to be with some babies and toddlers. Don't talk. And I would say to her, I want you there for a half hour, and then I want you to come to me, and I want you to tell me what they taught you. And then you're going to go back to another one. Because they're going to teach by their presence exactly the lessons we need to learn. They're the masters of this art that we're all talking about. Somehow we've gotten into this impression that adults are masters of these arts, and we're not. If we were the masters, we wouldn't be in the problems we have. But for some reason, we keep thinking that children can't be the masters of these arts because the arts are so complex, so important. How could a 4-year-old be the master of an art that I've spent 50 years trying to get? Well, Jesus and Buddha and Gandhi all told us to go to the kids, but we denied it. We don't believe it. Give you an example that happened to me last week in Austria. A mom was walking home with her 8-year-old daughter, and the little girl said, "I'm getting much better with the boys, and actually they're my friends now. All of them used to be enemies. And even when they tease me, she says, I don't get angry." And Mom said to her, "Well, what'd you do? What changed?" And the little girl said, "Well, I just listen to my heart now." There it is, from an 8-year-old.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
And I really mean in a very practical way. I say this countless times to people in workshops who email me. Find a master, and that master is going to be someone who's very young, with special needs, and do not talk. Just be with them. And you're going to find the fears, the hearts, all of those things are going to dissipate. It'll feel like magic because we don't expect it. I would not be doing this anymore if it were not for a boy who was 4 years old. When I was first learning how to play, I taught kindergarten, and in my class was a boy named Paul. He had leukemia, and his doctor told his mom he shouldn't play. So Mom told me, and I said, okay, I'll take responsibility, and I tried to do everything I could to include him, but so he wouldn't get tired. That was the issue. And 6 months into the school year, Paul came to me and said, "Fred, I'd like to have a meeting with you and Mom and Dad." And I thought, yeah, okay. I told Mom. The next day, the four of us met. And Paul said, "I want to play with Fred. I know I'm not going to live as long as the three of you, but I want to live my life as if I were." Ooh, it's hard to imagine what it was like in that room. We had 3 crying adults and a 4-year-old therapist. Paul went to each one of us, sat in our laps, and held us. We didn't talk, but at the end of the day, we knew Paul could come and play. So Paul came and played. He could only come to school every other day because he got so tired playing that he had to stay home and rest the next day. In 1 month, Paul died of leukemia. At the funeral, Mom and Dad and I said to each other, did we do the right thing? And we agreed it was the right thing. When I went home that night, I thought about, wow, what did Paul teach me here? One is trust. Paul didn't trust me. He didn't trust Mom and Dad. He didn't trust in himself. He never talked. But it was very clear to me that Paul's trust was in what I would call God. He just trusted life, period. No conditions, just trust. And the other thing he taught me was that he knew what he was doing. At 4 years old, he knew that living and loving life now is more important.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
he chose it. And that the little boy changed my life. If it weren't for Paul, I'd be dead.
Sure.
I mean, he literally gave me the courage that death is not the thing to be afraid of. And I don't believe that's what really human beings are afraid of. What we're really afraid of is loving life.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Boy, they
Well,
said,
Fred, when we look at nature, isn't it so? There's a saying that goes that nature makes the most with the least. And I think this is is exactly what you've been describing just now. Is that in that invitation from this little boy, is what happened there is there was just a simple thing to do, and that is to be with one another, and with that one there's no struggle. There's no struggle at all. There's just an acceptance of the currents of the universe, and it's a practice. So we really, it's all about connecting with others and the world, and with love and with God.
Yeah.
Just making the most with the least. This would also, be the answer to the beautiful and touching question that we received.
Yeah.
It's just to make the most with the least.
You remind me of an incident that really fits your description. I was working at a preschool in California, and it was lunchtime, and a teacher ran out and said, Fred, we need you. Hurry up, get in the classroom. What's happening? And she said, well, there's a hummingbird caught in the room, and we can't get it out. We've tried everything. You know about animals. You do it. And as I walked to the classroom, I thought, I have no idea what to do about this. This is screwy. I don't know what to do with a hummingbird. And I really didn't. I had not a clue what to do. They had darkened the room and opened the doors, so they thought the hummingbird would just go to light, but that wasn't working.
Yeah.
So I walked in the door, and without thinking, I just lifted my hand in the air. And as soon as my hand got in the air, the hummingbird flew right in my palm. I walked to the door and lifted it, and it was gone. And the teacher
St. Francis
said,
moment, huh?
Man, you're good. And I said, no, I'm not good. Whatever that was, and you, Anne-Marie, you described it, that connectivity, in this case between hummingbird and human, was there before I went in the room.
My goodness.
Yeah, that's the oneness.
Wow.
Yeah,
it is. It's
the divine.
So simple.
Now.
It is so simple.
It's as real as gravity.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank goodness the world is awakening to oneness, and each of us are. Let me just bring in some listener things here. There was somebody asking for the name in L.A. of the school, and I think you said it was Mobok.
M-O-B-O-C.
Mobok. Yeah, because there's a woman named Mandy from Mobok. Says, I love you. Thank you for everything you shared with me. And she says, I miss you. I want to come play.
Oh, wow. Oh, geez.
Let me bring in one more listener question. We always like to really honor them. And somebody asks, how can we feel like a whole child as an adult?
The best way, and I'm going to give the best answer, the best way to do that is to find one. And to find a child who has been allowed, or you can create a situation in which the child is allowed to be that whole child. Now that means if you're a parent, when you get down to be with a child, you stop being a parent. You can't be mom and dad and play with your child. You can't be a teacher and play with a child. You can't be a therapist and play with a child. Those are all categories that have to be let go of. And I mean really let go of. Because it's letting go of our categories that allows us to be the oneness that we want to be. If let's say many business people say to me, okay, I'm single, I don't have kids at home, my life doesn't have kids, what can I do? There are still places in every community and now especially in Europe, where there are human beings who need to feel like they belong. That could be a home for an elderly. That could be a hospital who needs cuddlers, who works people just to sit with cancer kids, to sit with cancer patients, to sit with the elderly, I mean, they're all over the place. And you have to let go. One of the things that kids taught me, I'm not there to cure anybody. This is not about Fred curing somebody. Fred's not even there. This is about letting go of who Fred thinks he is. And then the oneness is there. And we can all do that. When I began, I didn't have kids. I'm a father and grandfather now. And they really taught me, my kids really taught me. Anthony and Etienne taught me so much about being not just a dad, but being a playmate in a home and letting go of the dishes need to be done. The house needs to be cleaned. That the most important thing I did every day was love my kids. That's not just theory, that's actual practice. That means time. And it's real. We have to take the time.
Yeah, boy, so beautiful. And there's somebody here, Aura in Denver, Colorado, says, could we clone Dr. Donaldson about 1 million times? World peace would soon follow. Thank you, and so much love to you all. I think Aura in Denver speaks for all of us too. We've got about 8 minutes left, and I wanted to just, Dr. Fred, give you a chance to. We've got a lot of listeners here. You know, you've shared quite a few calls to action, but maybe the most important thing you'd like to leave with listeners, and then Anna Marie, you may be coming in as well, and Dr. Fred, if you could also leave a website where people can go to follow you. And if we've got about 5 minutes to share for about 2.5 minutes each, and then I'll get to a few announcements before we close.
Okay. I think in a general way, I would say that what original play demonstrates is that unity lies at the heart of the world, and its kindness and belonging can be experienced and shared. I leave with a thought of a 4-year-old boy in Poland. Said, real play is when no one is crying and no one has a broken heart.
Oh, beautiful.
And what I do is, if this is appropriate, I like to leave you with my personal email address that people can write to me. Is that appropriate? Or
please, yeah.
Then that's all small letters, O Freddie Bear, OFREDDYBEAR @AOL.com. They can also go to originalplay.eu. That's the website.
Okay, OFreddieBear @AOL.com and originalplay.eu.
Right.
Fantastic. Well, I know you're going to get deluged with email here, Dr. Fred.
Well, before I forget it and it gets passed, I want to thank both of you for the opportunity to be here and to share with you. I wish this was, 10 hours rather than 1.
Yeah, well, boy, we certainly feel the same way about you. My God. I'm going to thank you some more here, though. Anna Marie, I want to make sure you've got your time, so please come in.
Yeah, just, I also read this in your book, Fred, where you write about when you first started playing with animals, you write about a person who invited you. You were scared. You wanted to play, and the person invited you, and the person said, just trust. And, that gave me so much courage, because I know that, once we have tasted trust, it is for us to live that trust. Yes. It's so important that we do that, because when we trust, we give others the right to do that, because the person who you were following or who you were with, you could simply just let go of your fear and step into the trust of this person. And for me to have read that was just a wonderful reminder of, again, just how simple all of this is. And then I want to end by a quote that it's written in your book, but we all know it's a Rumi quote that says, "Beyond this field of right doing and wrong doing, there is a field, and I will meet you there."
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Wow. Thank you. I feel that the two of you helped me go to that field today. Thanks.
Oh, well,
Wonderful.
let me just say, yes, oh my gosh, thank you so much, Dr. Fred. This is unconditional love, God's unconditional love that you're describing, and of course, words really can't convey that fully, but your stories, I think, do. These beautiful stories of these kids in animal life that are these really beautiful, pure expressions of spirit, of God, of the divine, and just your invitation to come back, by letting go, is just stunning, really, just unbelievable. So, thank you so much, and Anna Marie, of course, thank you, and I'll come back and thank you all some more. Just really a wisdom, love-filled hour. Let me get to some announcements here that I want to share with everybody. Next Thursday, March 23rd, I'm going to be interviewing Gregory Toole. He was a senior executive with the Centers for Spiritual Living, which, as you may know, was founded by Ernest Holmes. And he wrote a book called A Simple Guide to Planetary Transformation. So that'll be an amazing call. It starts at 9 a.m. Pacific Daylight Time next Thursday, March 23rd. Then the following Thursday, March 31st, I'm going to be interviewing Llewellyn Vaughan Lee, who is an amazing Sufi leader. He's written many books, including something that came out late last year called Spiritual Ecology, which is just a hugely important book. And this, of course, is before Earth Day, so I'm so much looking forward to that call. It starts at 8:30 a.m. Pacific Time on Thursday, March 31st. To see all of our upcoming programs, you can go to livinginone.com. You'll see all of our upcoming speakers that are coming here through 2016, and you can also pull down replays. Each call is available for free listening for 48 hours following the live call, and that again is livinginone.com, so you can go check that out. Humanities Team, the Club of Budapest, which is based out of Europe, the Goi Peace Foundation, based out of Japan, and the Fowler Center for Business as an agent for world benefit that's out of Case Western University, all came together to recently create something called the Conscious Business Declaration that defines a whole new standard for business in the 21st century. It's actually rooted in all the things we've talked about here during this call. It shares that we must move beyond profit as the exclusive focus to profit that comes from nurturing humanity and all of life on Earth. We invite you to go to consciousbusinessdeclaration.org to read about and sign the Conscious Business Declaration, and if it resonates with you, we invite you to share it with your friends and colleagues. This program is focused on living in oneness. I want to invite everyone to be part of something Humanities Team created called Community Circle. It's only $10 a month. It's for those who wish to be part of an intentional community committed to living and embodying oneness, those who want to collaborate and connect with leaders engaged in spiritual activism, a community that gives and receives support, a program that gives you access to all of our audio links to the Living in Oneness Summit, Global Oneness Day, and much more. There are over 360 programs that you and your family can listen to, and you'll be invited to a private Facebook community. Also, as a bonus, we've just started weekly Community Circle Heart Circle calls that are just for Community Circle members. They're on Friday afternoons. When you sign up for Community Circle, you're invited to be part of those Friday afternoon calls. Once again, Community Circle is just $10 a month, and you can also join our Board of Advisors if you'd like to financially support our global outreach. If you go to humanitiesteam.org, you'll see the Community Circle icons there. Thank you again. Thank you so much, Dr. Fred Donaldson, Anna Marie Peters, my
wonderful.
partner,
You're welcome.
colleague here.
It's a delight to be with you.
Really, I candidly have moved to tears more than a few times during this call. My God, just really beautiful. Thank you so much, Dr. Fred.
Thank you, Dr.
You're welcome.
Fred.
It's my pleasure.
I also want to thank my colleagues here, these angels that support me and us when we do these weekly calls. Nanette Kennedy, Dee Meyer, Penny Hypo, and Monica Augustine. They are running the back end of this program and created the promotion and all of the things that make this summit possible. Last, definitely not least, I want to thank each of you, the listeners who are here, that made it a priority to be with us during the call today, and who are creating the shift in the world that's already begun into the kinds of things that we've been talking to during this call, really a transformation, an awakening where we really do fully embody our oneness. So in closing, I want to invite everyone on this call to really live as one with the divine and each other. This is ultimate reality, and this is one of the best ways to spread the invitation of oneness, is to create the world that we've all dreamed about and envisioned, to live it and to embody it, let other people feel it. So enjoy the rest of your day, and we'll see you next Thursday, March 23rd at 9 a.m. Pacific time when we're back on the air. Okay, thanks, everybody. Thanks, Dr. Fred.
Thank you
thanks,
so
Anna
much.
Marie.
Thanks, everyone.
You're welcome.
Thanks, everyone.
Take care. Enjoy your visit
Thank
in
you.
Germany.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.